Welcome to the first ever podcast of the Walkertown Report. 30 or 40 years from now, people are going to be saying, where were you when William Shatner was blasted off into space? Okay, it doesn't have the same effect as where were you when man first landed on the moon. But 20 or 30 years from now, I think there's going to be a lot less people who will remember when man was first set foot on the moon, but many will be remembering where they were when William Shatner went into space. And this was the breakthrough of the commercialization of space. Good thing, bad thing? How will the commercialization of space affect our current lives here on Earth? This is the subject matter behind Renato Tranquilino's latest book, Fate of a Distant Future. It's richly illustrated and centered in Manila as one of the major ports for space exploration and mining on the moon. I talked to Renato on a Saturday afternoon through the convenience of my laptop as he spoke with me from his Manila apartment. Hello, welcome to the Walkertown Report's very first podcast ever. I'm recording this one instead of live streaming it, but I do intend for the next podcast to be live. So stay tuned for that information. And I would think my guest here for the first podcast is Renato Tranquilino. Did I pronounce that right?
Yes, you did, sir. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. I'm grateful to be in your show.
And so Renato has written a book, Fate of a Distant Future, which postulates of a future time when there would actually be mining on the moon, and Manila or the Philippines would be a capital of that. And this week, when I saw William Shatner go off into space, I thought of your book because... Well, this would be just the beginning, just to get people used to going up there and enjoying space. Well, what did you think? What was going through your mind when you saw William Shatner on the shuttle there?
Well, it kind of reminded me of Star Trek First Contact. I mean, of course, they didn't launch a hyperdrive or a light drive or a warp engine drive at the time, this time, but it kind of reminded me of that it was like one small step for sci-fi fans, giant leap. I mean, for all of us, that sort of thing. I mean, I'm a big fan of Shatner. I mean, like from the days old, Star Trek. It's kind of it's been a long time coming. Better late than never. Because we're in 2021 now, and everyone, as sci-fi geeks, are kind of expecting that we would have been already on the moon 20 years ago. So it's getting there, and I'm proud of Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and of course Richard Branson for making the efforts to actually get out there and show that there's more to space and the moon than just looking at it from a distance. I mean, I know there's a lot of naysayers about those guys and how their resources would be better used for social social community improvement sort of thing. But I think it's they're showing the world where we ought to be. I mean, to alleviate the social problems like hunger, all this poverty, perhaps like going off world. Is what needs to be done. I mean, you see this kind of thing with our OFW here in overseas foreign workers that Filipinos, right? We have to venture out into places that we don't necessarily share any commonalities with and work there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the risks inherent with that, but we got to do it because, the salaries here of local workers are just not enough times to feed the family of three.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and of course, to get a decent education and experience. I mean, sometimes you just need to go and do that. And my dad worked in Bahrain for 3 years.
Uh-huh.
We only saw them like once a month, once a year for a month. So, you know, things like that. You may not, you may, in the case of, say, working in the moon, the risk would be high. So the people or the heads of families that might end up going there, you may not see them for like, you know, once or every. You can only see them maybe once every 2 years because of the cost of traveling back and forth, and also the inherent
Uh-huh.
risks. So, um,
I was thinking
yeah.
that for the price, I don't know what the price of these tickets would be to go into space, but it's like for let's say for most billionaires, at first I was very critical of it, but now I'm thinking, well, what if the children of billionaires have like this routine thing in their lives now where they go up into space, they see the Earth. Do you think that maybe the cumulative effect might make, their heads start to think, hey, wow, there's some fragility here. We better start really taking care of it.
I think um, I think what we're seeing now is more of an introduction offer to whet your appetite, but eventually I don't think that kind of space tourism will be um, profitable.
Uh-huh.
What I think will happen will be something that I've described in my book. I mean, if you see
Oh,
this,
wow.
this is called a sky elevator,
Uh-huh.
right?
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, Japan has already, like, I think, started doing some work on that, and whereby the city actually hovers around just outside the exosphere, which is about 500 kilometers up in off the Earth,
Mm-hmm.
500 plus kilometers off the Earth. So it follows it's tethered to Earth, right? To wherever you are. Say let's take for instance my place, Sampaloc here
Mm-hmm.
in Manila. So the space the floating space city will be tethered, and so what you would just do is go up and down on like an elevator, like goods, people, and all that will be just up and down. And then once you're up there, you can experience weightlessness, or they can generate some sort of electromagnetic
Mm-hmm.
simulation of gravity, so that you're not constantly floating. Okay,
Uh-huh.
there's some sort of gravity there, but I think that would be more the way to do it. In the long run, so that you're not
Mm-hmm.
having to use fossil fuel all the time to burn,
Right.
to there
Now,
for just minutes at a time.
uh-huh. In your book, one of the industries was mining on the moon, like
Hmm.
mining minerals and all that, and that's something that I wasn't aware of. I mean, as far as the possibility, could you explain maybe a little bit about your research and what you found out about the moon? Do you really think that it's really going to be that's going to be one thing we're going to be doing is mining on the moon?
A lot of it has already been done. A lot of the studies have already been done by NASA.
Uh-huh.
And
Oh,
one of
NASA's been mining.
no, they've actually taken rock samples there, and they found
Uh-huh.
these minerals and gold.
Oh, that's right.
So there's a lot of things that NASA has already done, like back in the 70s. As you know, there's a lot of Apollo missions that went up there and gotten samples of rocks. Um, and they found that it's worthwhile actually mining on the moon, and even possibly setting up a colony there for mining, because they also found some pockets of water, like
Mm-hmm.
or ice that they can throw into water, and then support life. Uh, but effectively, I think what they're going to use the moon for is a jump point to Mars. And then, of course, like then from Mars, where there's a more abundant supply of water, for fuel and whatnot, and also other minerals like for mining,
Uh-huh.
they can then jump off onto the asteroid belt. So that's the big thing I think
Uh-huh.
that they're gunning for because of imagine gold as in massive clumps of rocks,
Uh-huh.
the size of a house or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's the kind of things that will really like alleviate. If you could think of that poverty, like in in third world countries here.
Uh-huh.
They can get on there and do some mining. So I mean, maybe I'm being a bit hopeful at that, but certainly it's gonna open up a lot of new industries and opportunities for people to find employment.
Now, in your book, one of the characters, wasn't one of your characters a descendant of Bill Gates?
um, yeah, as you know, there's always going to be the people that you are seeing now. Like may not necessarily be the same people that you'll meet in the future, but certainly there will be these personalities that would be descendants from. I mean, we're talking like thousands of years here in between
Right. So
where we are
you think
now.
that after many millennia, they will still be remembered like we remember Galileo and people from the past?
Correct. I think there will be direct descendants, clear direct descendants from these people going forward in the future um, because of the technology that we now have, the record keeping capabilities
Right.
that we have, the cloud systems that we have. And
Mm-hmm.
pretty soon we're going to have quantum computers, which I refer to them as quantuters,
Mm-hmm.
QUAN, QUAN computers. Um,
Uh-huh.
so, which has a capability that's it's like I think the closest thing, and people probably are not going to agree with this, is like going from, remember in our time, the 486,
Uh-huh.
the 38, let's go back, 386, 386s, and then you skip from that into like the Xeon computers, like now, which are or even the Predator laptops, that is gaming laptops.
Right.
So that kind of level of technological leap, and then you times that by maybe another 100.
Right. Just you mentioning that, I don't want to go into too much detail on this, but that's really would be an interesting point. Work at home is like, big now because of the pandemic, the lockdown, and all that. I myself am working at home.
Mm-hmm.
What I never counted on is the fact that a company computer, I almost wonder if it's taking on a personality of its own and trying to take over. I mean, if I go on this computer while not on business hours, of course, that could result in a very serious fine and all that. And then, of course, there's a schedule I must maintain, again, in my own condo. I can't leave here to go to my own bathroom because I must stay here at this system. And it just got me thinking, wow, you know what? This reminds me of a skit. It was about 1984, and basically everybody was living and working in their own home. Nobody went out. And I just realized, wow, I'm like 1984, except the communists haven't taken over. You know?
I mean, what they're doing now, and you've probably seen it, is the deep fakes. You've
Uh-huh.
seen deep fakes where they're making celebrities say things, but it's not them that's saying it. It's just a computer animation.
Right.
So they're able to move the mouth say Tom Cruise, like to say stuff.
Our planet against aliens twice! No, 3 times. I know this country top to bottom, inside out. From here to here. Because I've lived its history. Literally, I did. It's a vampire. I feel the need to lead.
Like
I saw that. That's very realistic.
Right. Okay. There's no problem doing that to any of us right now, and having an AI that has a mindset of a 10-year-old cover for you whilst you go to the bathroom. For instance, if you have an issue of like, hey, you can't leave your desk as you're broadcasting because of rules. Well, technically you haven't, because there's like the 10-year-old you with your face still interacting with people whilst you go for a break on 5 minutes or 10 minutes. So it won't know any difference.
Yeah, it could be a very real point that technology will get in, and maybe it's there, but I think I can, if I look hard enough, I think I could tell, okay, there's something wrong with that video. I can kind of detect that maybe there might be something, but it's going to.
Yes.
You think it's to the point that you could really fool a lot of people now with video, that you can't really trust video by itself?
Yes. There was I don't know if it was Apple or Google that had a conference, and they demonstrated live how they had an AI system with a brain of a 10-year-old, like talk to somebody on the phone, just basic questions, yes, no answers, and actually interacting with them. They thought they were talking to a person. So now, if you tap on, say, a quantum computer behind something like an AI system, so then now you're increasing that capability to someone like a 20-year-old, maybe. So now you're talking to a 20-year-old. So how can you detect the only way is, I don't even. If you put a 20-year-old Dwayne interacting with you, how are you gonna know, like, just even on visuals, that it's not him?
Right. I played with that, like, okay, with FaceApp. Okay, I actually downloaded that, and I played with that, and took some yearbook photos just to see how they would work. That thing is scary. You could take about like 3 or 4 pictures of yourself in different parts of the room and make them 4 different caricatures, and nobody would be able to tell the difference.
Yeah. It's gonna come to the point too where, and this is what's probably scaring actors when especially now in the pandemic and with lives with online streaming services. It will, and then you've got the deep fake. Why would you need to hire actors when you can create actors from nothing?
Right.
And make them interact the way you want them to.
It's the same with audiobooks. Audiobooks. I thought there's a program there. If you can just get somebody to just read a few lines in there. Then you can use AI to make your audiobook. It would be more cheaper than, say, getting a studio. So, which by the way, is that something you plan on doing? Doing an audiobook?
I haven't gone that far. It has been suggested to me. I may consider it for my first book, like just to test it out. Because that one's fairly long. The Merovingian is like 500 pages. This is just small with some graphics in it, with some cute pictures in it. But yeah, for my longer novels that I'll be creating, I would most likely consider it, because it's another expense in itself, because you have to get a voiceover person, to nicely narrate the story.
Right. Right.
Um,
That's the challenge here. That the person who narrates it is almost as important as the contents of the book itself sometimes.
yeah, and would you like special effects on that, like music? So there's all these. I mean, if I was going to do something with um, with that, then I'd probably would have to get a theme, musical theme, a couple of them, and then the voiceover and maybe special effects.
Oh.
So that's getting close to creating a movie in your head. Um,
Hmm.
and to some extent, the first book that I did, I tagged it, I sort of correlated it with Instagram, so that when people are reading it, they had Instagram open, they can refer to the scenes on the Instagram. So it's like
Hmm.
a movie. Like you're already creating a movie, like with the help of the Instagram, and
Uh-huh.
so it's a movie in your head. So basically, that's what I
Uh-huh.
tried to do with the first one. So
Oh.
with this one, the new one, with this, it's a bit more of a graphic, half graphic novel. If you could look at like
Oh, okay, that's what it looks like. I read the ebook, but I did. This is helping me finally appreciate, the whole book,
yeah,
just seeing how it's all laid out and where the
yeah,
pictures would be, and
yeah. So it's going through some final edits right now, but these are done by local artists.
uh-huh,
Um, and the reason why I use the the images is to just you know get in the reader's head and implant like the scenes, you know and then finally, like when I was talking about space elevators, how it would look,
uh-huh.
you have the inside cover. This is
Oh,
just a
that looks
sample.
nice.
Okay, so that took me 2.5 weeks to basically draw, uh, but that's basically like where I live,
Uh-huh.
4000 in 4000 AD. So that area.
Right, that's
Uh, yeah,
Manila 4000 AD.
yeah, yeah. So
Uh-huh.
and if you look at the tiny details inside it, you'd see that it's a lot of
Yeah.
like old buildings, right?
Uh-huh.
Because I envision that people are going to be living anyway in buildings. Like there's not going to be any more of these houses things.
I
That's
remember when I was flying into Manila on one of my visits. I think it was my first visit, when the sun was out, because I arrived once at nighttime, and then it was when we were leaving that I finally got to look down and appreciate how big those buildings were. I mean, uh, do they have building codes out there? Those buildings look pretty huge. They look pretty
I
tall.
mean, you know, building codes are somewhat subject almost to how much money you got.
They were
uh,
tall, man. They were pretty
yeah,
tall
yeah.
buildings.
I mean, yes, there are zoning laws here,
Uh-huh.
um, but when you're building a big building like that you're referring to, those kind of
Uh-huh.
called skyscrapers, the skyscrapers. Um,
Yeah, there
you,
were
you
definitely
build it.
skyscrapers.
Yeah, you gotta build them in areas that there's already infrastructure to support those buildings,
Uh-huh.
such as water, electricity, you know, access to vendors that would service your skyscraper. You know, so you can't build a skyscraper in like my area, for instance,
Right.
because the sewage system, the water may not go high enough to support a 50-story building.
I understand you have an event coming up to promote this, to promote the
Yeah,
book.
yeah. Thank you. The Winfred Manila Resort and Casino, a hotel, a four-star hotel here, um, has been kind enough to actually support me in launching my book in January. uh, they've been a supporter of the arts for a while now. I think for about 2 years. They've been doing some events there for local artists, and local authors like me that promoting their work. So they've been really nice about it. And one of the things that they actually stood out with regards to pandemic was how well they managed the place in terms of the cleanliness, making sure that the place is safe, for guests that come around. So it's a decent and really pretty venue. When you go, it's like a gem within the city of Manila. I'm really honored to that they've asked me that they that um, that they're helping me launch my book again, because they did it for my first one. So that was really nice.
Yeah,
Um,
the United States just opened up tourism for everybody if they as long as they're fully vaccinated, and that was recent. I mean, do you think that the day's going to come when that's going to be happening with the Philippines, or is it still going to be pretty much restricted for a while?
they're trying to open up. Um, and with the launch in January 22, our backup plan is basically to have it online if we're still not fully opened up. Um, but it's hard to say, because I don't want to be a doomsayer here. But in the UK, when they're operating like there's no COVID now, right? And their cases
Right.
are 45,000 per day of
Hmm.
infection. I didn't look at what their death rates are. So
Hmm.
they're a little bit, they're not talking about it right now, but I would imagine that if they open up this place completely, then it would be at least that, or if not double that per day in the infection rate. and
Right.
um, and that could be bad, like for the elderly, you see. So they're
Hmm.
worried about that. And for our lawmakers, the politicians, it could be bad for them too. And I'm sure they're thinking of that, because with the campaign season happening, if you let loose and everybody's just walking around like they don't care, um, you could be killing these people. Like
Right.
some of them have comorbidities, and diabetes is a big factor in deaths of a lot of the people here.
Uh-huh.
Um, uh, you know, so it's hard to say like when it's going to be fully open, and that is why the online technology and all that um, is going to be uh, well invested on by a lot of countries going forward, probably for another 3 or 4 years. So
Right. I mean, the only thing that's like giving me pause on this is that at least in America, the deaths are going down. Okay, and the numbers are
Mhm.
dropping. However, at the same time, and this was kind of a fear I had a few months ago. I just got the feeling that even if everything opens, it'll be more like the world just giving a collective, okay, we can't fight it, so we're just going to open it and live with it, kind of thing. You know,
well,
and so.
that's what's happening in the UK. So yeah, they
Uh-huh.
just said, okay, we'll live with it. Now Sydney, Australia, is planning to do the same thing, basically saying, whatever, we'll just go along with it. You know.
Uh-huh.
But the problem is there's always going to be y- you know how many deaths is it going to take before you have to
Hmm.
lock down again?
Right.
We're averaging like 100 to 100 to 200 deaths a day. Okay, so
Hmm.
if that shoots up to 500 a day, I mean, you're gonna have to start looking at mass burial sites, right? I mean, you know how
Well,
you,
that happened. I mean, that happened here. We did have mass burial sites in the United States in 2020.
yeah.
So,
We're doing the same thing, and we're just not talking
mhm,
about it. And you know, why would you talk about it? Really, because it's it's just so depressing, you know.
mhm,
Uh, but they can't keep the economy locked down, the economy on hold forever with these lockdowns.
uh-huh,
So it's a fine balance between letting people die and getting them or letting them get infected,
mhm,
and you know and protecting them and prolonging their lives. You know, even though it's going to be such a miserable life being locked down. Um, you know, like the kids. Okay, so they're saying like, and I feel bad because I have a little boy, you know, and they can't play with other kids in the street,
right,
right? Now, we probably get a lot of people say, and it's like, oh, well, why don't you just let them? Well, okay, well, here's a scenario: you let them in, okay, they get sick, you didn't know it was COVID, they come
mhm,
back, and then I get sick, and Eleanor gets sick, and then the grandma gets sick. So then, I mean, you know, the grandma might die because of the comorbidity
uh-huh,
or whatever, you know, because the COVID is like a traitor, an assassin. It will get you where it hurts, you know. Um,
right,
and so you're like you're like spreading. You're gonna make the kid feel guilty. So what
mhm,
do? You kind of restrict them playing, you know. I mean, even
mhm,
I have comorbidity because I have asthma, so I have a good chance of dying if I do contract it. But
uh-huh,
there are times I still have to go and do some errands and things like that, and so I go out of the house. You
mhm,
know? But the people that are catching it are the ones that are going into groups and you know socializing and whatnot. Because they feel that they have to. People like in marketing or PR or in just general business where you have to conduct your business.
mhm. Yeah, that happened to me a few weeks ago. I decided after many months of being a hermit to take a walk down Fremont Street on Saturday night. I didn't get very far because I got for a few blocks, and then when I got to where there was going to be some performances, well, actually, I'm used to pandemic levels and post-pandemic levels Fremont Street when there wasn't anybody on there. But now
Right.
it's getting back to the point where, like, I remember pre-COVID, we went to see KC and the Sunshine Band.
Oh
Okay,
yeah, yeah, I remember
and
that.
you had to stand like this through the whole time. You were shoulder to shoulder with people. If anybody even tried to dance, you'd knock over their beer. I mean, it was packed. And I looked at that and I realized, oh my God, we're getting back to Casey and the Sunshine Band level. And I
Yeah.
just thought, it's time to go back now.
It's kind of it comes down to this. It's like if you don't if you don't have anyone else that you can infect at home,
Hmm.
uh, then you are more than welcome to party,
Uh-huh.
and there are lots of people that party. But if you are like someone who's young and you're a teenager and you're partying, your parents are healthy, and you don't care because you've gone through COVID, you had it, whatever, and you're
Uh-huh.
fully vaccinated or even not vaccinated, but it doesn't seem to affect you. When you do get it and you're asymptomatic and you go off and visit some elderly folks that happen
Hmm.
to be friends of your parents or something like that, you can be
I,
killing them.
I've been in
If you don't,
places here. I've been in places here in Vegas where sometimes everybody's wearing a mask, other times, they're just kind of just flagrantly ignoring it. I mean, like there's not really a mandate. Uh, and I think I could probably get away without wearing a mask and no one would stop me. Of course, I'm not doing that, but I could probably do that. How are they doing that in the Philippines? Are they pretty strict about it?
they're very strict here. I mean, it's like military level. Like if you get spotted without a mask, even on the street, they'll stop you. If you don't put
Uh-huh.
it on, they'll hold you into the precinct.
Uh-huh.
So it's very militaristic, very similar to Sydney. When you
Uh-huh.
go into when you go into uh, say the malls, okay, so you must have a mask on. You must even have a face shield. Now, I mean, there's some controversy with like the face shields here, but they even require you to have that, like going into the
Uh-huh.
mall. Okay,
Uh-huh.
so they're very strict here in terms of that those sort of protocols, like
Right.
against COVID. Um, but unfortunately, when you start to loosen things up, like the cinemas are now open, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Level, we're now like down to a slow opening where it includes gyms, I believe, and theaters. Okay. So, what do you think is going to happen? I mean, when people hear that it's open, naturally they're going to rush in there. People with
Mm-hmm.
COVID and no COVID are going to go in because they're sick of like staying at home.
I think so. In fact, according to the collected wisdom on YouTube, the only way I
Hmm.
can get into the Philippines right now is if I'm going to get married online to a Filipina or if I'm going to fill out retirement papers. Then I can come.
Yes,
But other than that, I can't do it like I did the last time where really I had a visa and I just bought a ticket and that was it.
that's about right. Like right now, it's they're very they can't allow Americans to even come here because you guys are not on the green thing,
No,
whatever. And they have
no
these green.
argument from me on that. So,
Yeah, but that's not going to last. I think they have to open up. I mean, they're having the same issues with supply runs, cargo ships. Okay,
hmm
they're not letting them like freely dock. You have to have all sorts of clearance or medical clearance and whatnot.
uh-huh,
Um, Now that's causing problems for the economies of all countries. Okay, because the
uh-huh.
trade is kind of suffering. That's
Well,
unsustainable, and so they're gonna like kill that too. That they're just gonna open everything up, and then it will be up to you to want to gamble your health
right.
um, in the scheme of things. And it'll just be like that. It'll just be like 19, or what is it, 1920s? Right, 1920s.
Uh-huh.
When everything had to open up. And there were no vaccines then for the flu, right? So
hmm
it just eventually died the natural death because the virus just
Uh-huh.
kept mutating and killing people, and eventually, like everybody built an immunity to it. Okay.
Uh-huh.
So that's effectively where we're heading towards too. There will be better medication.
Uh-huh.
Uh, but what I'm but in my book, I sort of said that what if you had a pandemic, you had a massive earthquake that destroys a major city like Manila, and then you had a financial collapse as a result of that because there's just so many people that
hmm
that would die, and the structural damage and whatnot. Like what what happens then? I mean, when the trickle of support, like for the
hmm
country, is just not enough to rebuild it from such a combination of disasters, and
Yeah.
yeah, that sets up the premise for my first story in the book,
Uh-huh.
which is that the country had to rent off
Uh-huh.
part of its sovereign land.
Well, now when is that? Before we wind up here, where, and when is that promotion that you're having for your book?
Oh, okay. So there's a soft one, which is just like I'm just going to be doing a media blitz on November 1st, which is the release of the
Okay.
ebook. Also, around that month, there will be the release of all the the book will be available in certain like online shops, a bookstore that I love, Solidaridad, which is a famous bookstore here. I mean, I'm so grateful to be in there, to be one of their vendors, one of their clients, authors that they're selling the books of. You know, and then finally the real thing with media and all that will be on January, around January, that late January.
Okay.
We haven't finalized it, but basically the book is out on November 1st. So you'll find this title, Fate of a Distant Future, on Amazon.
Okay.
And then and you know, so November 1st is the date it's going to be out. And then there's also a paperback there, if for those that want to get the hard copy. And I believe that's in color, and so you'll see the pictures in color.
Mm-hmm.
I'll also have the local copies here, like for people to buy in the Philippines. So this is specially, it's going to be raised. So the local copies will have this part raised.
Oh wow.
And it's meant to be, the way I designed it, it's meant to be able to sit next to magazines on like our coffee tables or something like that for people just to read. So it's presentable enough to be like to get in there with the magazines and whatnot. So in dentist's office or you know,
airplanes,
airplanes,
yeah,
yes,
airports.
exactly. Like just, you know, you can read it in you could probably finish reading it in a day, you know, if you're traveling.
Mm-hmm.
So airlines, you know, can get it, and it'll be great for kids to read as well, like going through the like place. Sorry, great for people traveling and either short trips or international trips. So Philippine Airlines, like, you know, Air Asia, so this kind of place, great. Cebu Pacific. So yeah, I think it's just a great thing to I just, it's nice short read, lots of things to think about.
Mm-hmm.
That as you read it.
Well, we'll be excited to hear your progress as this goes. So, you know, I'll definitely be keeping in touch. And the next time, of course, you know, when we try this, it'll be live, and I'll work through all the kinks on this. And you know, but I do want to thank Renato for being on my very first experimental podcast here at the Walkertown Report.
Pleasure to be here, and I wish you all the best with your podcasting. And I use StreamYard, and so it's a great tool, and more power to your program.
Oh, well, then, thank you very much. Well, thank you for being here, and thank you for watching. We'll talk to you next time.